This is the Sergio Rodriguez Show.
Welcome, everybody, to the Sergio Rodriguez Show, a show unlike any other. Today, playoff preview, NFL playoff preview. We mentioned on our show that aired yesterday that we were going to have our playoff preview for everyone, particularly the gamblers who want to follow some of these lines and some of these games. We're going to give you predictions on each game, score prediction, and we're going to discuss each game a little. We won't get too in-depth into Green Bay and Kansas City because we really don't know the matchups for next week. The NFL always does a positioning of teams based on who won, and those teams will draw the lower seed. So we can project, but we can't really know fully how it's going to work out. But let's jump into these games really quick. You know, the first game that's going to kick off the weekend is going to be the Buffalo-Indianapolis game. Buffalo is a 6.5-point favorite. 51.5 is the total in that game. You know, the Colts have found their running game recently. I'm going to say probably the last third of the season, they've been able to run the ball a lot better than they did the entire year. I've been mentioning the lack of production from the rookie that they drafted, Taylor. And in the last bunch of games, he's been on his game. But more importantly, they've been running the ball well as a unit. And they've gone by committee in the backfield. The Colts, look, they've been playing well early in a lot of these games. And they, I'm sure, will come out and compete hard from the beginning and even take a lead early in this game. They've showed that they can get out of the box pretty quick. The issue I'm going to have with the Colts in this game, if I were to actually try to predict how this is going to play out, is this game is probably going to be a one-score game either way into the third quarter, middle of the third. But in playoff games, something tends to happen. Games begin to go off script. And that's when you need plays to be made either from the pocket in terms of being able to avoid the rush if you're a pocket passer, someone like Brady, Rodgers, or you have to get out of the pocket and make a play, similar to what Rodgers will do, or some of these running quarterbacks, sometimes they can make plays that are off script that do help. I don't think you can do that for 4 quarters. But if they're in a game, in the third and the fourth, they can win games for you. You know, what's the knock that we always speak about guys like Lamar Jackson? If you make them trail, game over. But if you're in a game, their ability to play football factors in. I don't know if Breeze can do that anymore. I said Breeze, I'm sorry. I don't know if Rivers can do that anymore for the Colts. And I think that eventually that's what it's going to come down to. And the other quarterback on the other side, Josh Allen, will be able to do that. I also believe that Buffalo's been waiting for this time for a very, very long time. They've been waiting for this moment for a long time. And I think that they're going to come in there and they're going to get it done. Only about 7,000 people can be in there. I'll tell you, if there were fans in there, I'd give Indy 0 shot. I'm going to give them a puncher's chance, but I still think that Buffalo wins this game 31-21. The 4 o'clock game on Saturday, Seattle's a 3.5-point favorite, and the total's 42.5 against the Rams. Seattle's defense has picked up a little from where they were earlier in the year. Remember, earlier in the year, they were putting up gaudy numbers offensively, but were struggling defensively. Ironically, as the season's gone on, the defense has picked it up, But Seattle's offense is struggling in a major way, particularly the last day. If you go back 8 weeks of Seattle, Russell Wilson's got 300 passing yard games. Remember, the guy was on pace to be the MVP, everybody was telling us. I even told my cousin Ricky, who had him in fantasy, to trade that guy, and he refused to, and then he went in the tank statistically in fantasy. But in those last 8 weeks, Russ's numbers, he's averaging 208 yards passing. Now, the touchdown to interception ratio is not terrible. 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. The ratio is not bad, but 12 touchdown passes in 8 weeks for a guy like Russell Wilson's not a lot, especially when he's required to carry a boatload of the team's offense. In those 8 games, he's also been under 200 yards 3 times. And in one game, he barely got over 200. He got to like 205 or 206. So, you get matched up now with probably the worst matchup they could have. The NFC's got 3 really good defenses. The Bears, 4 if you want to count Washington. 4. Washington, the Rams, Chicago, and the Saints. But the reason I believe Seattle's the worst of the Rams are the worst of the matchups for Seattle is because they play in the same division and they know them. So on top of being good, they also know what they're playing against. Goff should play for the Rams. And if you really want to get cynical about this, go back to 2 weeks ago when Seattle beat the Rams. The Rams had more yards, more first downs, controlled the time of possession, and had one less drive in doing all of that than Seattle. Those teams split this year, but I see the Rams going on the road and winning this game 20-17. Tampa's an 8.5-point favorite, and the total is 45. That's the 8 o'clock game. They travel to Washington. Now, I saw an interesting stat, and I had mentioned it, I think, one of the earlier weeks of the season, but I didn't follow up on it to continue. But I noticed that I heard that Tampa is 1-5 against teams with winning records, and I went back and checked it, and they were right. Now, Washington, although they are a division winner and hosting, they have a losing record. So make of that what you will. I will say this. I think Washington is going to make this game an ugly game because I believe that particularly early in the first half, they'll be able to control and stay in the game with Tampa. I'm not too high on Tampa going into the playoffs. So I believe that Washington's going to do their thing defensively, and their defense will keep them in the game, maybe get a turnover, short field. Rivera spoke about splitting the quarterback duties just so that he could get Alex Smith through the entire game healthy. But I just don't see how for 4 quarters Washington can stay in this game. I think Brady will find a game to win this. Find a way to win this. He's just too good to not find a way to win this game. But I believe that he's going to play his he's going to get his one and only win this year in the playoffs with Tampa. I think next week, if they play Seattle, if they play the Saints, they'll probably lose by 10. If they play Green Bay, they'll probably lose by 14. And we'll see how that matchup shapes up. But for Saturday, Tampa 24-17. They'll figure out a way to at least keep Washington at arm's length, even though I think it'll be a game. It'll probably be one of those games where Washington will be in a one-possession game, but they'll have no shot. Sunday slate of games is, it's weird. I almost like Saturday's games better than Sundays. There's not one game on Sunday that pops to me. Maybe game 1. I'm sick and tired of watching game 3 in terms of just being a divisional game. But game 1, Baltimore is a 3-point favorite, and the total's 55 on the road at Tennessee. Couple of things about Baltimore. Baltimore has been playing playoff football essentially for the last 5 or 6 weeks. They were in a win or out situation. Because of that, I think that they're going to come in the right frame of mind. I don't like this matchup for them, and I'm going to tell you why. Tennessee, and particularly if you really are a gambler, Baltimore struggles in games where they trail because they can't throw the ball from the pocket. We know that. I mean, he can make throws inside the numbers, but he's not throwing the ball outside the numbers. Their drives are essentially 10, 12, 14 play drives. Tennessee is a team that's not going to make much noise in the playoffs, even though they're set up offensively to do so this year and last year, although they played better last year. But this year, they're having a major issue with their pass rush. Just can't get to the quarterback, but no pressure on the QB. Ironically, for a guy who's a running quarterback and a team who relies on getting 75 to 125 yards rushing from the quarterback, that almost hurts you. Because these guys are not going to be going upfield past Lamar Jackson. You would almost rather have a team that has a decent pass rush rather than a team that's basically just going to stay in their lanes, rush upfield, and contain. Because that's what Tennessee is going to do. Make no mistakes. The game plan is going to be a very simple one. They're not going to try to reinvent the wheel. We're not going to get to Lamar Jackson no matter what we do because we can't get to any quarterback no matter what we do. So how are we going to win? Very simple. Rush 4, stay in your lanes. Rush 3, put a spy, stay in your lanes. Make them throw the ball outside the numbers. And on offense, we're going to get ours. And they will. They're going to score. I'm going to predict a score that's going to go under in this game. But 27-24 Tennessee is still a lot of points in a game where I feel Tennessee might decide to milk the clock in the second half a little if they can to control how many times Lamar Jackson touches the ball and how many times Tennessee has to put their defense on the field. So it'll be a good game. I wish that was the night game, but we're going to get Sunday started with that game. And, yeah, I mean, look, I know a lot of people like Baltimore, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it. The 4 o'clock game is going to be the Saints and the Bears. The Saints are a 9.5-point favorite, and the total's 47. And the Saints are obviously at home. I think it's funny because I think that this is the word. The same way I felt the Seahawks had a bad matchup with the Rams. I think the Saints got a bad matchup also. Now, look, they're going to win. But when you have a guy like Breeze, who is limited now physically, and a lot of rumors are going around that this will be it for him, the Bears are two things you don't want to run into: physical and fast, particularly on turf, which is where this game's going to be played. The Saints are going to win this game on defense because the Bears are limited. The Bears have been putting up a lot of points the last bunch of weeks, but they have not been playing teams like the Saints. The Saints are going to strangle them defensively, and they'll do enough on offense. And I don't think they're going to put Breeze in a dangerous situation once they go up like 10-0 or something like that. So I think this game's going to end Saints 24-13. I really believe that, in these games, the second halves sometimes are basically like a boxing match of a boxer who's ahead by a lot of points and he's just dancing around with no action. And I think this weekend is going to bring us a lot of those games. Okay, in fact, I think every game that I picked, with the exception of one, I picked the under in, if you really look at it. Now, I might not give those games for the Sergio Rodriguez picks. I got to really look at that. And you can check us out on Instagram. By the way, we were 58. Let me think about this. We were 58, 35, and 5 or 6 or something like that in our picks this year, which is just spectacular when you really think about it, and how hard it is for gamblers to actually put out a winning record in these football games, particularly the NFL. I mean, actually it was 58, 35, and 5. I think that's big time, not to toot my own horn. But yeah, Saints 24-13. The 8 p.m. game, it's the game that I told you I'm tired of watching. It seems like every time I turn on my TV, Pittsburgh is playing Cleveland. Pittsburgh's a 6-point favorite, and the total's 47.5. Look, Pitt struggled to run the ball the whole year. I've been mentioning it. Even when they were, 7, 8, 9, 10-0, I was saying they were a paper tiger, because I just don't believe that you could win in this league if you don't run the ball. You can't go in there and throw the ball as much as they want to throw it all the time. They did catch a break a couple of weeks ago against Indianapolis and got the win that they needed to survive and advance and win the division. But I can't put any type of faith in Pittsburgh. I just can't. I think that Cleveland's going to come in this week. They're going to run the hell out of the ball. They'll play ball control when they have to. Weather won't be a factor to them. Physicalness won't be a factor to them. Crowd won't be a factor. And I think that you're going to put Ben in a situation where he's going to have to throw the ball 40-plus times. And I see Cleveland winning this game. I really do. I really do. I think Cleveland's been the most consistent team after week 4. And I'm going to roll with the Browns. Cleveland 27-24 over Pittsburgh. Something that I thought about that I think would be cool to follow is ranking the 14 playoff teams that are starting this week. And 2 of them aren't playing. 12 are only playing. But I decided to rank the 14 teams, 1 through 14. And the reason I did that is because I want to follow how it plays out. Now, look, a lot of that is going to be determined by matchups and who they play. But I'm going to give you guys my 14 teams, and then I'm going to give you my Super Bowl final. Number 14, Washington. Look, they're the only team with a losing record in the playoffs. You can't put them above anybody else. Number 13 is Chicago. The Bears just are too inconsistent and have too tough of a road for me to even think that they could do anything. Number 12 is Seattle. Why Seattle? Although they've played better defensively, I still can't trust them defensively. And although offensively, Russ, when he's good, is good, 2 or 3 weeks, I can live with you struggling. They're going on 9 weeks now coming up. That's who you are right now. I just think that they're not that good. They're just not that good. Number 11, the Rams. Another team that's inconsistent on offense, but at least they have something to hang their hat on. They're phenomenal defensively. Number 10 is Pittsburgh. I never thought I'd have a team with as many wins ranked so low going into a playoff scenario, but I do. I just think Pittsburgh is limited with their ability to run the ball, and I just don't think they can win it that way. Not to mention that defensively, they're not stout either. So, Pitt, number 10. Number 9, the Colts. Now, you're going to tell me, but Pittsburgh just beat the Colts 2 weeks ago. Yeah, they did. But I like Indianapolis's balance right now at this point, still a little better than Pittsburgh if I had to choose one. Number 8, the Buccaneers. I saw a lot of people had Tampa or have Tampa a little higher, closer to 5 or 6. I just don't see it. I look at a team that has a lot of flaws and a team that struggles whenever they play anyone that has equal talent. Number 7 is Baltimore. Baltimore, although they've been playing well, like I mentioned earlier, they are also another team that is a one-trick pony. And I don't like one-trick ponies in a one-and-done situation. Number 6 is Cleveland. Now, I'm a little higher on Cleveland than most because I do believe that if they can just throw the ball for like 220, 240, which Baker Mayfield's definitely capable of, with their running game, they can win. And they're better than a lot of teams. The one thing about them is they can survive an injury in the backfield because of well, let me phrase it this way. Their style of play, which is running the ball, also has them with a lot of depth. So they can afford an injury in a position where most people can't. And in a short situation, in a one-and-done situation, when you're going into these games and anybody can get banged up and have to sit 2 quarters or whatever, they're set up to continue to play their game regardless of any injuries that happen. And I like that. Number 5 is Tennessee. Now, I have Tennessee really high. I do, for 2 reasons. Number 1, I believe their offense will play in the playoffs. Number 2, I believe their matchups will help in the playoffs. That becomes a major issue in one-and-done situations, right? Who you're playing and where you're playing. If they have to travel, which they will, after week 1, if they win, they are equipped to play in cold weather. Kansas City's waiting. Pittsburgh could be waiting. Cleveland could be waiting. Baltimore is going to be, obviously, Baltimore would be eliminated, but the weather factor for them doesn't affect them as much as it would other teams also. So I'm a little higher on them than most. Number 4, the Saints. I do feel they're limited offensively, but their defense is phenomenal. The Saints, I'll tell you, Man, I could see the Saints winning this. I could make a case for them. But I just feel that at some point, they're going to run into Green Bay, and they're not going to be able to score with Green Bay through the air. I really believe Breeze is at that end of the rope where he can still play and he can still win you some games, but I don't know if he's good enough to get into a 30-point shootout with Green Bay, which I think he's going to need points because as good as the Saints are on defense, I don't think they're going to control Green Bay from scoring 24 or 27 points. Number 3, Kansas City. I've been saying it for weeks that Kansas City has been playing these close games and they've been playing with fire. Now, they've been winning. I mean, eliminate last week against the Chargers because they really played no one. Everyone knew that they were going to basically not even show up for that game. But their wins have left everyone wanting more and questioning, what's going on there, particularly gamblers who bet Kansas City every week. I truly believe Kansas City is going to get picked off this year. Now, if I had to bet, you probably got to take them to go to the Super Bowl because they're playing one less game. But I like the number 2 team, Buffalo, to come out of the AFC. I think they're good at everything. They do everything well. I would like them to be better in the front 7, but they're good enough. Everything else, they have plenty of. And the number 1 team is the Green Bay Packers. I think Aaron Rodgers and that team, they showed me a lot a couple of weeks ago against Tennessee. I always felt that Green Bay was one of these bully type teams, one of these teams that is a cold weather team that's built more like a warm weather team. And that when teams get physical with them, they punk out and they tap out. But they played a physical team with a physical running game. And I'll tell you what, that defense showed up that day. The offense always shows up. I think Green Bay is the best team of the 14 left standing. And look, I'm gonna predict a Green Bay Buffalo Super Bowl, which would be fun to watch, both quarterbacks. I think if you get Green Bay Buffalo, Green Bay Kansas City, you're gonna get a great Super Bowl either way. The NFC, I believe, is weak with the playoff teams that made it. In fact, the 11 through 14 teams in my rankings are all NFC teams going in. So, I don't see any. To me, this is Green Bay and the Saints gearing up to play in 2 weeks. We'll see. Or in 3 weeks, I should say. We'll see. We'll see. Well, this is our playoff preview. I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that it helps you guys out as you begin to plan out your picks for this weekend. And some of you guys that enter pools. And for those of you guys who are fans of these 14 teams that are still alive, have fun, enjoy it. And remember that the Sergio Rodriguez Show is a show unlike any other.